8 players I'm fading in best ball leagues in 2022. This is Russell Clay. I'm a staff writer over at fantasyguru.com, and I have 8 players that I'm fading today. So we're going to look over all of that good stuff. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you're over on Fantasy Guru, you already did all the work there, so thank you for subscribing. If you are seeing this on YouTube, I'd really love it if you'd go over to Fantasy Guru and check out some of the content I got going on there. It's plenty of stuff like this. We also got Tyler Beaker, Armando Marcel, Jeff Mans, Ray Flowers, Ted Schuster, Rich Mileto, just a whole cast of characters that are awesome. So, but let's get into it, all right? That's enough plugs for one video. So the first group of players I'll say I'm fading is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown. They're both going very high. Kyler Murray going off the board at QB5. And Marquise Brown is going at 35 overall. Now, this is not Dynasty. This is just best ball for 2022. This just feels a little expensive. You know what I mean? Just a little too much for me. And my problem is, and you're going to hear this theme a lot throughout this video, I just prefer other players in this range. So, you know, I have about 2 or 3% Kyler Murray through 90 best ball drafts on Underdog so far this year. And it just feels like I'd rather have Joe Burrow. I'd rather have Russell Wilson. And, you know, and then before him, I'd just rather go with Allen, Mahomes, or Herbert. So it's not that Kyler Murray's bad. It's just that I feel like his value doesn't match up for me for fantasy purposes. Also, he's going in a range of the draft where I'm drafting wide receivers and running backs. So there's a lot of factors here beyond Murray himself that is making it hard to grab him. You know, quarterback is one where you're either grabbing one early, which we have a lot of early round quarterbacks this year, or you're sort of waiting till the middle or late rounds. And I just find when I'm drafting early quarterback, it's one of these three. Maybe sprinkle in a little Lamar Jackson, who I also like more than Murray, or it's Burrow, Wilson. So that's kind of one of the main reasons. Also, I'll throw out there with Kyler Murray, you know, he was a great fantasy QB in 2020, and he was a great fantasy QB through the first half of 2021, but his rushing yards, I'm a little worried here. So, yes, he was banged up in 2021, but almost all of his production the last 2 years in the running game has come in that first half of 2020. So if you look at this, see this stretch here? Let's take a look at this and see what we come up with. So he was basically averaging, if I can click, that would be wonderful. He was basically averaging 60, 70 yards and a touchdown. 67 rushing yards and 1.1 touchdowns. He had 10 rushing touchdowns in the first 9 weeks of 2020. Since that point, he's been a solid running quarterback, but more like that Russell Wilson upside than a Lamar Jackson upside. So I don't know that we're going to get quite as much rushing upside from Murray. And then if that's not the case, the last couple years when he's sort of been not running, it makes it a lot harder for him to be effective as a thrower. So, you know, he does have some solid weapons this year. I like Rondale Moore in year 2. I like, you know, DeAndre Hopkins when he's off suspension. And then I like Marquise Brown, but 35? What are we doing? What's going on here? 35 overall? What do you mean? Going ahead of um, Cortland Sutton, Ezekiel Elliott, Travis Etienne? I mean, these are all guys I'm attacking. Jerry Jeudy, those quarterbacks I mentioned. I would have Marquise Brown in, maybe 10, 15 slots later than that 35 ADP. This is a range I'm really not loving right now. I'm not loving the James Conner, but I will draft him. I will draft Jalen Waddle. I will draft DJ Moore. I only have one share of Marquise Brown right now at that price. I like him. I think he can get over 1,000 yards if things break right, but what happens when DeAndre Hopkins gets back there? And Kyler Murray hasn't been the highest upside passing quarterback. So I know we've just spent 5 minutes on this situation, but I'm fading this right now. For better or worse, I love Kyler. I think he's a great fantasy quarterback, sort of. But compared to these other guys in this golden era of QB play, I'm kind of fading Murray at this juncture. Things may change as we go on, but here we are. So next we're going to talk about Tyler Algier and Dameon Pierce, 2 4th-round and 5th-round running backs in the 2022 rookie class. So let's take a look here at some of the data we have over at fantasyguru.com. This is my article, Rookie Expectations. Here's the percentages of RBs producing 1,000 plus yards from scrimmage as a rookie, separated by NFL draft round. So where are the large majority of running backs that are fantasy relevant in year one coming from? Well, the answer is the first 2 rounds. So 47% of first-round running backs have a fantasy relevant season is how I would word 1,000 total yards. And 27% of second-rounders. So that's where we're getting the majority of those. The Najee Harrises of the world, those guys are going to come around. Saquon had 2,000 yards from scrimmage in his rookie year. McCaffrey, Fournette, like those types of guys. Gurley, Zeke Elliott, those are all first-round running backs. And then it gets a little steeper drop off to second round. Third round is, and then look at this. 2.2% of 4th-round running backs accumulate 1,000 yards from scrimmage in year one. 2.2%. That is minute. That is a very, very, very small set of players. Same thing with 5th round, 3.2%. So we're playing really low odds bets. I mean, you can bet on them. I'm sure there have been more that have been handcuffs that have kind of become valuable towards the end of the year in the 4th and 5th round. But those are the types of odds we're looking at. So Tyler Algier is being drafted 153 overall. So about round 12 to 13, RB 47 right near Michael Carter, Kenny Gainwell, things like that. So, I mean, it's not a crazy price. I'd just rather have just about everyone in this range other than him. Let's take a look at this Atlanta running back depth chart. We got Algier, Quadri Olison, Damian Williams, and Cordero Patterson. What if I just faded this running game altogether and just said I don't want any of these guys? Because that's what I've been doing, and I just have a hard time seeing a lot of fantasy relevant weeks coming from this group, especially if Mariota starts half the year. He's a running quarterback. Probably not going to be great for the receiving ability of this whole crew. I also think we're going to be splitting snaps here, barring a Cordero Patterson injury. Patterson is going to take all that receiving down work. Algier can definitely be a between the tackles grinder, but again, 5th round pick. Let's keep things in context. Let's see him make the roster first, which I do believe he will. But think about guys like Josh Kelly on the Chargers last year, a couple years ago. A guy that nobody even talks about anymore. It's like that's the type of guys we're looking at in the 5th round of the NFL draft. And similar thoughts here with Dameon Pierce, though. He's going quite a bit higher, round 11 to 12. So I do like Damian Pierce's profile a little more, but I do think he has a little more competitive of a depth chart. Nobody likes any of these guys, but I do think Marlon Mack is reasonable. And Rice Freeman is, a decent NFL running back that can take snaps. So, I just think overall this offense is going to be ugly this year beyond, maybe Brandon Cooks and John Mechie or Nico Collins, maybe Brevin Jordan, but I'm not necessarily buying this running game at all, especially at this price. I'd much rather have Rashad White, Ronald Jones, Alexander Madison, Ramondre Stevenson. Like, I'd rather have everyone in this tier over Pierce. So that's what I'm looking at there. Again, this is what we're looking at for round odds of 4th and 5th round running backs being like, RB2s through a season. So definitely not loving that. All right, let's move on to another one. James Robinson. He's going pretty low overall. But even at 170, I just have a hard time buying him coming off that Achilles injury. I like James Robinson, but he got hurt mid-year, and he now has Travis Etienne back and healthy. I am just not necessarily buying James Robinson at this price. I'm not necessarily buying running backs at this price. I'd rather have Brian Robinson. I'd rather have Tyrion Davis-Price. I'd rather have Kenny Gainwell if it kind of gets to that. And I'd just rather draft wide receivers in this range than draft a James Robinson. I could be wrong. I'm going pretty naked on ETN. I think he's going to stay healthy this year. And if he does, I have no doubt he will command the featured role there, kind of leaving Robinson as a handcuff. If injuries hit and Robinson takes over, then you guys maybe win on this pick, but there's also a chance, even if Etienne does get hurt again, Robinson is not going to be good to go. So I'm just fading him, fading that injury risk there at 171. All right, so this one's a tough one. Christian Watson and Alan Lazard. I am fading both. I'll grab Sammy Watkins in the 18th round, but I'm just not too interested in any of these Packers wide receivers from a season-long standpoint. I do like Christian Watson long-term as sort of an upside play. 4.36. Look at this. Combine. 38-inch vertical, 136 broad. 4.36. 40-yard dash at 208, 210 pounds. So this guy's a monster. I just think he might need more time. I think we could see Sammy Watkins on the field. I think we could see a lot more running, a lot more of the running game this year with Dylan and Aaron Jones if they both stay healthy. And maybe a little Tanyan and Josiah DeGuara action, 2 tight end sets. So I would be skeptical that Christian Watson is going to put up huge numbers in year one. Lazard probably has better odds here. He's actually been pretty solid the last 3 years from a, general upside standpoint. I see the vision on why people are drafting him. I'm going to be way underweight on him. I don't necessarily love the upside there. I think Rodgers is going to have a lower end year than the previous couple years without Davante Adams. I don't think there is a Davante Adams replacement on this roster. So I am fading Packers wide receivers, buying Aaron Jones, buying A.J. Dillon, buying a little Bob Tanyan a little bit, buying a little Josiah DeGuara, getting out there and getting snaps. So maybe a little more 2 wide receiver sets from this Packers team. And the last one, Darren Waller. And this has nothing to do with Waller's talent. It has to do with his situation. I love Darren Waller, super talented guy. He was heading towards another 1,000-yard season if he stayed healthy last year. Again, coming off back-to-back seasons with 90-plus targets and only played 11 games in 2021. So I'm liking Darren Waller still. They traded for Davante Adams. They re-signed Hunter Renfrow. And they have, a few nice running backs that can contribute in the passing game here. I just think Derek Carr's ceiling is not necessarily huge. I do think he can throw for 45 to 4,800 passing yards in 2022. But Hunter Renfrow, I think he's going to keep that slot role, which he was so effective in last year. He's Derek Carr's top target in the slot now, I believe, which kind of takes the underneath of Waller's production. He in 2020, 2020 and 2019, Renfrow hadn't fully emerged yet, and it was sort of the Darren Waller show underneath as well. So maybe we see Waller get a little more vertical this year, which we absolutely know he can do. Maybe we see him in the red zone more this year, and if he gets a few more touchdowns than I'm expecting, he could hit value here. But based on what I'm looking at, target share, things like that, and just how this offense is going to run on a week-to-week basis, I think Renfrow and Adams are going to command a lot of target share. So it's going to be those three, but I think that's going to hurt all of them. Like, I'm not buying Adams necessarily at his price either. So the only ship that's rising here is Derek Carr. So I like Carr. I don't love the immense upside. I don't see 5,000 yards and 40 passing touchdowns in his future, but 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns is certainly in play with this offense and set up around him. But, at 40 overall, again, we're looking at that tier of players I like. So he's getting drafted right around Mahomes, Travis Etienne, Judy, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm just drafting those guys over Waller just about every time and waiting on tight end. And maybe I can get, Dawson Knox, TJ Hawkinson, Gronk, Freiermuth, Gesicki, Irv Smith, Cole Kmet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or I'll take Kelsey, Andrews, or Pitts. So, again, like the talent of Waller, I just don't love the price tag this year considering his offense. So, I think that's it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me today. As I said before, if you liked what I provided today, please like the video and also subscribe to the channel. And if you're over at Fantasy Guru, thank you for checking out the article, and I'll see you next time.